My voltaxic canaries! How is it that you're running scared of this blind beastie? It can't even bloody see. They're whispering in the dark, every moment now, licking at our fear, tasting our sweat. We need more sulphite! Here we all are, lying about, sick as dogs, evil closing in around us. Get that sulphite, no matter what it takes. This green lot won't stand in our way, not with all we've got down here. Give it time, my sweethearts, give it time. Your master, Niko.
Welcome back, you filthy exiles, and I've been waiting to do this video for a little while. So basically what you just saw there is from a character or an NPC by the name of Niko. Now, if you're a Path of Exile 1 player, you will 100% know who Niko is. And in fact, like, this is one of my all-time, pretty much the content that I defined my channel on for Path of Exile 1 for as long as I could remember. But for anyone who doesn't know who's coming from Path of Exile 2, Niko is actually a character that is referred to as the Master of the Depths. Now, what does that mean? Well, Delve. Basically, for anyone who doesn't know what Delve is an infinite loot dungeon mechanic where you basically collect a material called sulphite and you go into the depths of Delve, and basically you continue to push down in Delve for almost infinity, though Steve figured out a few leagues ago it's actually closer to like 70,000+ depth, and that was pretty wild. Anyway, there are a number of things to know about Delve. Basically, the endgame mapping system that exists in Path of Exile 2 right now is very similar to Delve in a lot of natures, including biomes and all those things you can pretty much bank on were taken from Delve. What we also know about Delve is it is one of Jonathan's favorite mechanics, but the biggest thing here is in the Isle of Kin in Path of Exile 2 is where you just saw that excerpt. If you search around, you can find it. Basically, that is most likely going to be the entrance to Delve when it eventually comes out in the game. Now, the big thing that we don't know here is what or when Delve will come, because at this stage we can pretty much bank on it that it's going to be coming. In fact, they have actually even shown us what a fossil is, or a fossil node is in this case. But yeah, we can sort of surmise on what it may look like, and it actually comes back to the next area when you go past the Isle of Kin, and I'll pull that up on screen now. Okay, so the Volcanic Warrens. This is the next area that you enter after you get to the Isle of Kin, and you have a look around, you find stuff, you kill the boss, and whatever. Now, the really interesting thing here is something that I noticed when I was playing the Volcanic Warrens originally, and it took me a few passovers, but something felt very weird about the design, I guess. So, we'll just sort of skip ahead, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so this is the Volcanic Warrens. So this is the area that we just had a look at that you go into. So this is just a bit of a screen cap recording that I took. It's very interesting when you sort of look at. So this is you coming into the main area. Now, something that you'll notice very interesting here is there's these random areas that dissect here, and then you move forwards here, right? Now, the thing that I noticed with this is like there's no real purpose to this, and it actually makes a lot more sense the further we dig into this footage. So basically we go straight, and now if I were playing Delve, I would be looking at this corner the entire time. I barely ever look at the screen. Like even in PoE 2, with the changes to defenses in 0.3, there's a lot of things that, you know, I just wouldn't pay attention to when I'm delving. Like, it's just not worth it if you've got a defensive character and you can trust it. So we sort of go through here, see this here too. So basically, this is like a dissecting corridor. I'll just zoom this in so you can see what I'm talking about. So basically, what we can see from this is like, you could like go straight across your corridor here. So you would follow your delve cart, and then like you would run off into the distances on either side. This is basically the same design as Path of Exile 1, and we'll have a look at Path of Exile 1's delving. You'll see exactly what I mean in a moment. So basically, like I'm just running through, this would be my straight run. I would run in, pick up a fossil here, or maybe run down there, and then it'll branch out further. So you can see that on the left, right? So it's branching out further. See how it's got stacked rocks here, right? So if we go back a touch, we can see that there's stacked rocks, okay? So again, we'll just sort of re-go into there. Now, generally, the way that this is a dead end, okay? This is pretty much exactly how Delve is designed in Path of Exile 1. And I would say this area is actually a zone that really echoes the look and feel of Delve, which is why as soon as I stepped in it, I felt like I was in Delve. And so these stacked rocks generally would be like a fossil node, right? And this is where you would pick up your fossils. In this case, that I'll talk about that in a moment. It's going to be, I think, a very deterministic way of crafting. It's relatively deterministic in Path of Exile 1, but still very RNG to an element. But I feel like it's going to be incredibly deterministic and maybe one of the best crafting mechanics that exists in Path of Exile 2, and probably very profitable as well for those of us who want to play Delve. But basically, you go, you pick up your fossil, see how it's a dead end? And then you run back into your column and then you keep following it, right? And it goes further down here. And sometimes you'll have dissecting columns that'll go in these directions here. The map's really important as it gives it away. Again, going left would be a dead end. And I don't think I do that. But basically, yeah, there's another area further up which sort of gives it away even more. Okay, so we get to this area here. Now, why is this important? This would be like your Azurite vein, or when you hit like a vein where you got to fight enemies. Now, in Path of Exile 1, it's still relatively large, but it's nowhere near as like as wide and spread out as this. But this sort of feels like the setup that they would go with to make that work. So you'd have enemies that would spawn in all of the nests to the side, which is exactly how it works in Path of Exile 1. And they'll continually spawn exactly like that. See? They'll spawn at you and come at you, and then in the center would be the node or the loot chest or whatever it might be. Now, we've sort of also seen the cities already, and that's basically Abyss. And even the note that Niko has there talks about that Delve shares a place with the green guys, right? Or the green enemies, or whatever the reference is right at the very start of the video, is really interesting wording, because Abyss is a subterranean mechanic, right? And it follows whole Coolamak themology and everything, but also that's what Delve does too. And in fact, there's a lot of intersection over Delve and Abyss, to the point where you have the Abyssal Lich in Path of Exile 1, for example, and it would make a lot of sense that they would include that as an accessible mechanic, very similar through Delve, or something a little bit different. There's a lot of other things. We'll talk about some of the ideas that I've got around the approaches they may take at the very end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, basically what I can see here is something that looks very, very similar to Delve. So let's go and have a look at this with Delve and compare it side by side. Okay, so first of all, first thing you start to notice is this looks ominously very similar to the Isle of Kin, doesn't it? Yeah, I just realized this when I walked in, but this is basically the entrance to Delve. Notice how, like, this whole area, I actually think now this is actually the Isle of Kin now out of PoE 2, because you actually notice the generators and everything busted up when you go into that area, which is really funny. I really like that they've tied this together. So we can 100%, almost 100% bank on that entry area is Delve. But anyway, let's have a look and see what Delve looks like, and I'll show you why I'm building the link. Okay, so this would normally be how you like navigate through Delve, right? So we would pick the node that we want to go after. It's why I make the comment that the PoE 2 endgame is very similar to Delve, because it sort of is. So this is what Delve looks like, and I tell you what, the worst thing about playing so much PoE 2 is you really start to see the graphical change in the fidelity, right? PoE 1 just doesn't look as good as PoE 2. But anyway, so basically, you'll see what I mean, like if you pay attention to the map up here, right? So you start to see like how the different nodes sort of converge. By the way, I've chosen a slam build because I thought it'd be fun. So you see how it like goes into these off areas like this, and that's what we sort of saw with the footage from PoE 2 just then. So then we go through, we just sort of belt our way through all the enemies. You can imagine this being a lot more chaotic. I actually feel like in PoE 2, you can see like all those sort of out areas and all the lava areas and all the rest of it. I feel like it's going to be a lot more immersive. Basically then, yeah, you just sort of work your way through. So that's what we're doing here. And you see how it has like these off areas where you go pick up your Azurite, and Azurite you use to buy resonators and fossils. I feel like it's going to be a lot more valuable. Same deal here, like you'd have redundant points. You throw your flare and your dynamite at it, and then behind it will be loot, like this, right? And then you're basically just going to walk back into the column, and then eventually you're going to run so far to the point where you get to the end of the Delve node, right? So we just sort of go through. I just hit the space bar because my brain is stuck in PoE 2 mode. So we just go all the way. We didn't go into the darkness then. We could have. And then you come up, and you see how, like, you come up, and it's a point like this. Like, this isn't one where, like, enemies spawn from, like, the sides of the rooms. It's probably not the best example, but this is an azurite node. You hit the node, you fight it, you kill everything, right? And then you laugh, right? You collect the bank and move to the next area. So this is why, like, I believe, like, looking at like, again, the volcanic warrens, it's looking pretty damn similar to this, and I find it very difficult to see very much, like, dissimilarity at this point. They just look very, very similar. Except, obviously, in PoE 2, it's going to be, you know, hopefully enemies are a lot less, like, potent, things like that, though we know it's probably not going to be the case. And then you collect that, and then you're going to hit your delve crawler and go to the next node, rinse and repeat. Like that's basically delve. Okay, so some of the things that I sort of observe with this that I think I would like to see come to Delve and in PoE 2, and obviously some of the things that make sense that could come to Delve, right? So basically, like, we build a pretty clear, like, link between the two things, right? It's very much like, it looks like they're using the Isle of Kin as a bit of a testing zone for how they're going to build the Delve map, and the Volcanic Warren sort of looks like it. Obviously, we built the link between the Voltaxic generator is actually there. It's just a dilapidated version, and that entrance somehow we're going to get down there, or it's going to be rebuilt, or something like that is going to happen, right? That would be really cool. Or maybe there's a secondary entrance that allows us to get in through the volcanic warrens. So that would be really dope. So some of the things that came to mind that would be really good to see. Well, number one, I think the thing that will make Delve, like, really pump PoE 2 up is that it's an infinite mechanic. So, like, while the mapping is sort of benign, Delve has no real difficulty drop off conventionally, and that makes it one of maybe the hardest mechanic. It can be either the easiest mechanic or the hardest mechanic in the game, and the rewards are scaled based on how far you want to push into it. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is, like, if you want to stay at a certain level and just farm at a certain level, you can do that. Now, the big problem that I see with PoE 2 is, like, the scarcity of resources to access it. Like, are we going to have issues getting sulphite? And are the towers going to dictate sulphite? I just don't think that's very good. I think it'll depend on what the atlas is. Hopefully we have, like, native generation. Sulphite's not super hard to get. Otherwise, it's going to be really painful to sustain delve. It's one of the reasons why PoE 1 is actually a lot better in a number of areas with how its atlas mapping system works around being able to support sustainable endgame mapping mechanics consistently. So I think things have to change in the endgame before Delve actually makes its way in. The other big thing is around crafting. So the big thing about fossils currently in the game is they allow you to do all sorts of weird and wacky stuff. Like, glyphics were very popular. Perfect fossils were used a long time to basically quality up to as high as possible. You know, they've added like, you know, physical damage fossils, fire, you know, your fire style fossils, all that sort of stuff. All that was in the game previously in PoE 1. So how they do it in PoE 2, I hope they do it very similar to how the Essence system's set up. So you get specific modifiers, and it's just really like a deterministic roll, depending on what you get based on a combination of other things. I think resonators should come back into the game too. I think resonators are a great thing, and even the mechanic very similar to how you can cash out azurite. I feel like, though, they're probably going to look at azurite as it was pretty redundant outside of buying one socket resonators in PoE 1, and they're going to make that a lot harder, but it's not going to bother me because it's Delve, right? I will play anything with Delve because I love Delve. It is the best. So the other big thing here is just some of the things that I would like to see in Delve in 2.0, and I'm going to do a video that fleshes this out probably in a lot more detail. So obviously the minecart is a big thing. I would like to see that be like more interactive, be able to like juice the minecart or have the minecart change the way that biomes work. The other one is obviously the return of Crystal King. I feel like you would just be letting yourself down if you didn't get Crystal King come back in Delve. Basically, Crystal King is like the best thing in Delve. And that also means the loot tables that existed, things like All's Uprising, could be totally insane. Basically, what I would see that, so in PoE 1, All's Uprising is an amulet that gives you a total free aura, right? It can be various different auras. Envy is basically the only real way you can get like a real pure like level 20 roll Envy. is by using Nor's Uprising. There are a couple of other ways now, and there were definitely ways with the Trathians as well in the Mercs update. But for the most, you could do like pretty ridiculous stuff with that, right? Also, free aura was really good. I feel like they're going to do a 0 spirit cost aura or metagem or something like that, which could be nuts. It means like that amulet, if that becomes a chase amulet for Delvers, that could be absolutely ridiculous. A whole free aura from your amulet is nuts. And some other stats on that to really push you up. Usually it has like armor or energy shield depending on the intelligence or dex or strength affinities. Being able to re-roll biomes, so being able to actually have like a delve that's a living, breathing sort of environment would be really cool. How you would do that, and maybe you could do that with the minecart, and then yeah. There was also the other concept of like dynamic darkness. So instead of like static darkness, so there is a darkness in Delve that you have to be resistant to. It's, think of like Trials of Sekhmet, similar to how that works. Basically, darkness can kill you if you stand it for too long. I would actually really think it'd be cool if you had like darkness storms that cycle by your area, and this other concept like, you know, GGG if you're watching this, eclipse zones where light flares flicker and you need to have protection from that somehow. Also other like environmental hazards like cave-ins or gas leaks that can be ignited if you walk through or attack an enemy with fire would be really, really cool. I think that would be absolutely ridiculous. Or where you have to close off certain areas to access other areas, but there's a compromise because then you can't go through that area and you then got to trail through a different area. So it might cost you more sulphite to travel there, or it might cut you off from being able to do a bunch of other nodes. That would be really cool. I think that would be amazing. Like actual like choice in how you tackle it would be fantastic. The other one that had here was like resonance veins. So like you're traveling through Delve and you hit a vein where you can drop your item in that vein and sulphite infuse your items. I feel like that could be also really, really cool, and you could only get those particular roles in Delve. It's very similar to how Delve was with like different drops in Delve, but instead of being drops, you have a deterministic craft built into the mechanic. I think that's fantastic, and even like the idea of sulphite infused items is sick. I think that's cool. GGG, you're welcome to take it. Just credit me with the idea. The other part here is like sulphite infused skill gems. So like the lineage gems that were added, basically gems that could have like an effect that's juiced up by, you know, people getting jacked up on sulphite. That'd be really cool. The other one too, position delve as purely deterministic crafting. I think we covered off on that. So yeah, deterministic crafting I feel like would be a huge thing for delve because it is just sort of, there's so much you can do with that. And the last one would have like, obviously the lore behind delve is it was built over the Eternal Empire. And so basically having it, instead of have the old ruins, but have eternal ruins, Karui undercities, so pockets of the Karui that have made encampment in the actual delve itself, and then Marraketh tombs, which would be like very similar to like Val sort of stuff. That was already in PoE 1, but that would be really cool. I think like the abyssal cities leave that to the Abyss League because they've already, or the abyss content, so they've already sort of covered off on that and have its own thing. And obviously the other one is Primeval, so like Crystal King. I'd really like to see more fleshing out of the lore of the Primeval sort of stuff in Path of Exile. I feel like that was sort of like left as that was it. We're not going to do anything else with it. There are some other things that sort of lend themselves to that when they added in the Kalgurans and stuff like that. But it would be really cool to see some more Primeval stuff come up because that's basically what the note alludes to also, is that they're surrounded by, at the very start of the video, that Niko and the sulphite miners are surrounded by evil, so it's the prime evil, which is really funny wording because if you go back to Diablo, that's basically what Diablo is referred to as, the prime evil. I think it's a play on words there. It's just a really cool correlation. And that's obviously why I sort of like Crystal King as well. Also, it's a really cool fight. But yeah, there's tons of stuff with this. And I sort of felt I wanted to make a video on it because I'm super excited with Path of Exile 2 at the moment. And I think moving forwards, it's in the best possible direction. I'm having a lot of fun with the game still. And now I'd like tapping back into Path of Exile 1 and then going back to PoE 2. I sort of prefer PoE2 now, which I thought would take a little while longer to get to, but eventually that's where I wanted to get to with the game. But as an overall, these are just some of the ideas that I have for Delve. GGG, if you want more ideas, reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss more if you end up watching this video. Anyway, I thought this would be a bit of a fun one because, like, it's speculative, but we have more, like, in-game stuff to speculate with now and come up with theories. We sort of got a bit of a touch to what Delve may look like. I'm hoping it comes into the game sooner than later because I think it would be a total game changer at this point. Like, people are saying the endgame's a bit lackluster and stuff like that in PoE2. And to a degree, I do agree with that because it sort of seems like that one-shot builds and stuff like that, I think need a bit of balancing. But I also think at the same pace, something like Delve would be, with like the infinite possibility of like, you know, scale it to the way that you play almost, and then have you like have to really trudge through to find things and farm but still get rewarded on the way through, and different things like that could be absolutely amazing in Path of Exile 2, especially with the way that it's going and the way that crafting works and things like that. Delve could really be like the best mechanic. I think Delve in PoE 1's the best mechanic, but I think in PoE 2 it could be even better. But anyway, if you like this video, don't forget to like and sub to the channel, the Twitch and all the rest of the stuff. I'm going to be trying to get back to the gym tonight, so I'm going to go do that now, and then we're going to go and load up a live stream, hopefully later on. Anyway, I'll see you guys a little bit later on, and have a good one.